friends. So this video is specifically for a client that I have who is recovering from surgery. Hi, friend. But it's applicable really for anybody. So I'll just kind of walk through what I'm giving for her specifically, but ways to modify to make it applicable for anyone. But mostly it's kind of a rehabilitative beginning, just coming back to some movement after surgery and some time of non-movement. This first bit of business, anyone can do. Sit in heaven, watching TV, the end of a long day. So for my client who feels most comfortable sitting reclining, I'm going to do this demo on a couch so that it makes maybe a little bit more sense. What we're trying to do is slowly move her towards getting her higher up onto her sitting bones. So you could use a roller, you could use a rolled up yoga mat as I'm doing, or blanket or towel. And what that's going to do is just help to start to bring the spine back up and be able to find those sitting bones. So that way we can start to work that breath of finding that neutral alignment through the spine and how the breath supports that. So to go from that fully reclined, full flexion, it's very comfortable, but it doesn't feel very good over a long period of time. So just a little prop up. The roller is going to be the most extreme version of getting right up on those sitting bones, so that might be something that you work towards. So starting with something a little softer, maybe, depending on what's going on. And if you don't have injuries, but sitting on the couch makes your butt or your back hurt, this is another great option just to find a little bit more alignment. And finding those sitting bones, and then getting at your good old roller, and just a little bend and stretch here. So I'm using the roller to help open up the tissues in the calves, and you can stay with both legs working bilateral. If that feels good, you can go neutral. You can externally rotate those legs a little bit, get into that outside tissue. And if you take the legs a little wider, you might be able to find a little bit more internal rotation. And then, if that feels interesting, but you can take it up a notch, you're going to take one leg onto your roller, take the other leg up on top, rinse and repeat. So we're just adding a little bit more pressure. I'm going to take that roller up a little bit. And then, say you find a spot that's particularly interesting, you can pause there, let the leg get really heavy, and then work through a little point and flex of the foot. If you find that as you point and flex that really pulls you up and away from the roller because it's so tense, then keep the movement pretty small and think more about reaching that heel bone than pulling your toes back towards your face. The toes can stay pretty relaxed. I want just to find some work in the ankle joint without pulling a lot of contraction through the front of the calf. So a little point and flex there. Big breath in, big breath out. All the things. A little bit on the other side, a little internal, external rotation. Find the spot that's interesting. Maybe a little bend and stretch. Big breath in. And big breath out. And again, I'm going to work through a little point and flex of the foot without getting too aggressive through the toes. And inhale. Don't forget to breathe. Breathing is the most important part. And exhale. And one more like that. Big breath in. And big breath out. And then letting that go. And moving the roller to the side. All right, so now to get into a little bit more of the work, so we've sort of opened up the calf muscles, created a little bit more awareness in there, and now taking a Delightful TheraBand, putting it around the ball of the foot, And then I like to do a little crisscross applesauce here with the band, so that way my foot's really supported from the inside and the outside, the inside and outside line of the foot. And then just working one foot at a time, starting to go through that same point and flex that we did on the roller, but this time a little bit more work of really reaching those toes over the top of the band and lengthening through the big toe joint. And then as you come back, the focus being on reaching the heel away from you instead of pulling the toes back. So same idea as when we were on the roller, that the toes can stay a little relaxed on that pull back and focusing more on reaching that heel. And something that can help here is to have maybe a little blanket. I'm using my foot as a little support under my calf. So that way, as I reach that heel bone, I'm pressing down into my foot a little bit. You could also use the roller if it's not too high, but just a little something for elevation, and then you can press down, and you're gonna feel some more work in that hamstring and how that calf and hamstring connect all the way up into the butt. And then just working through a little point, and then pressing that femur down into the couch. Calf is pressing down into your pillow, or maybe just your foot like me, and a little reach. And you should feel a nice stretch through the calf here and some stretch through the hamstring. But because you're pressing down, that stretch is really active. If I totally let go of that contraction, it was just pulling this back, I don't feel half as much. So this makes it really active. We want to make sure that you're not locking out through the knee joint, but always just kind of pressing down into the couch, down through that calf, finding that heel reach. And so working through that, nice, I don't know, 10 times maybe, whatever feels good. So that way, especially if you haven't been moving your body, this is a great way just to get tissues mobilizing again. And you're starting to build some conversation between the foot and how it travels all the way up to talk to the hip. And maybe one more like that. I don't know, I wasn't counting. And last one. I'm going to pause here on that reach. I'm going to really reach that heel bone and press down, lengthening through the waist, finding a little bit more stretch in there. Big breath in and big breath out. And then let that go. Let's switch over to the other side. Do that same thing, just providing a little bit of support under the calf. I'm going to crisscross applesauce my band. And as I use the band, I'm not hunching forward, right? I'm not pulling from up here. This is already relaxed, and then I'm just pulling those elbows into my waist. So my shoulders keep that neutral. And that will help me to find that length through the waist and be able to press my femur down into the couch instead of hiking it up. Right? It's all connected. So finding that point, I'm going to reach through that big toe joint and not just the pinky toe. Oftentimes we like to sickle that foot. I'm going to reach that length through that big toe joint. And then the band is what kind of pulls the forefoot, and my emphasis is on that heel reach while I press down into the couch, down into my foot. And that also helps to not lock out the knee joint. So we're going to point for 2. And back, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, last time like that, 8, and reach that heel, reach, 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 big breath in, big breath out. Pressing down and lengthening away. One more big breath in. And big breath out. Good. And then letting that go. And letting go of the band. All right, so now from here, if we're going to keep working in a seated position, I'm going to just keep encouraging you to find those sitting bones. Couches are always going to want to let us kind of slide under. So so that my sitting bones slip under. And when the sitting bones slip under, now my hamstrings don't have to work in that length because those hammies delightfully attach to the sitting bones. So now you're just going to take that band and you can bring your feet up as much as you can. So say you have an ottoman, just bring them to the edge of the ottoman. I've got this delightful chaise, so I'm just going to bend the knees just to a point where I can kind of still get up on my sitting bones and use my yoga mat to help me with that. And then taking your TheraBand and wrapping it around your thigh bones. And you could tie a knot, you could use a loop, or you could just hold it. So I'm just going to take a little twist in the band, and then I'm going to do that same thing. I'm just keeping my elbows kind of close to me. And I'm going to press into my heels, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I think about pressing that femur down and pressing the calves down and pressing the heels down. So this is going to help to move the femurs further back into the hip instead of it getting really tight in the quads and the superficial hip flexors. And then taking that big inhale. And as I inhale, I'm going to really think about breathing back towards my yoga mat or roller. And then exhale, softening that sternum, wrapping my guts back towards my spine, and maintaining that connection in front. Inhale, finding more space in the back. Like if I could breathe out my butt, that's what I would do. So that way you're able to get that posterior diaphragm to drop really low, that pelvic floor gets to expand, those back ribs get to get more movement than they usually do. And you're gonna keep that breath pattern. And you might let it go and then be like, oh right, breathing, and then come back to it. And that's fine. It's not about perfection. It's just about getting moving. So then finding all of the things, good times. You're gonna keep digging into those heels. So you're gonna dig down first, and then you're gonna press out onto the band. And release. Dig into the couch and open, and release. Dig into the heels, into the butt, open, and release. And let's go again. Let's say that's 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9. Last time 10, and let's hold that one. As you hold it, keep finding the sitting bones, keep finding those heels, pressing down, finding that pelvic floor, getting a little bit taller out through the crown of the head. Just do 100 things at once, no big deal. Big breath in, big breath out. Hold that contraction for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. And then we'll let that go. You can untie that band. I'm going to grab a Pilates ball, but you could also use a yoga brick. This is just going to give a little bit more squish, but a brick is totally a great choice. I just had this one closer to my hand. Same setup. You're going to find those sitting bones. You're going to think about pulling back towards your prop of choice. You're going to find a little squeeze on your other prop of choice between the knees, and take an inhale and exhale. You're going to press into your whole foot this time. So I want you to really think about that big toe joint, but also the heel. Can you start working through that whole foot and find a little squeeze on your ball, and a little release, and a little squeeze, and a little release, and a little squeeze, and a little release, and squeeze again for 4, and 5. Use that exhale to squeeze 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, and hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. And then We'll move on to some standing work, but that's just a good start to kind of open stuff up and get things moving. Okie dokie.